Hello, it's time to answer the question, is the Sigma 10 to 20mm f3.5 a full frame lens? And the answer is no, it's not. It's for aps-c cameras. However, it can be used on a full frame camera. This is it, this is the Sigma, and I actually found that it was perfectly usable. I've been using it on my A7 III and my old A7S II, which are both full frame cameras. I found that it was perfectly usable for stills from about 15mm up to 20mm, which on a full frame camera is extremely wide, and to be honest, I didn't have any problems with this lens at all. It's obviously not as clear as probably what you would get if you paid for a full frame lens, but the full frame lenses are a lot more expensive. So what I wanted to do was just show you a few sample images that I took while I was in China using this lens, because it was on my camera a lot. It's great for architecture, it's great for street photography, I think, because you can get people in it, but you can see where they are, you can see the surroundings and things like that, which is great. And yeah, I didn't have many problems with it at all, really. So what I'm going to do is show you a few images that I took while I was there, and then you can have a look. And if you're thinking about getting a full frame lens, and you're thinking that budget-wise you're going to have to stretch quite a bit, this might be something that you'd be able to use. And again, it's not a prime, so you've got a bit of zoom range in there as well, and the difference between 15mm and 20mm on a full frame camera is quite significant, actually. So this first image here was taken at the Shenyang Science Centrum, which is kind of like a big science museum for families and stuff. And this first image was taken at 13mm with the lens, and this is on a full frame camera. And just looking at it now, you probably can't tell any problems with it at all, apart from it's quite dark towards the corners. If we zoom in and have a look at the corner, you can see that the quality is actually pretty terrible, but it depends what you're going to be using it for. If you're going to be looking at it on Instagram or Facebook or something like that, you're not going to have any problems with that at all. And in the center of the image, in fact most of the central part of the image, it's pretty sharp. There's obviously a lot of distortion on there, but this is a really, really wide lens. Just to give you an idea of what it looks like at 10mm, this is how it comes out on a full frame lens. So as you can see, it's not just vignette in there in the corners, there's actually no data there at all. That is the inside of the lens that you see in there. So this last image is probably the best one out of them all, because this is at 20mm, so this is at the sort of the full zoom range of the lens, and it's very, very sharp in the middle, and it's quite sharp out to the sides as well. And as you can see, there's not much vignetting at all. So for a 20mm 3.5 lens on a full frame camera, that's pretty good. So this next image is just some of the skyline in Shenyang outside of the science center, and this one is at 20mm, and you can probably tell it's pretty sharp. It's just as sharp as any of my full frame lenses are on this camera, and this is at sort of 24 megapixels, so it's not like the highest resolution camera in the world, but it's pretty good, and you can go right in to 100% and it's still very, very sharp. And that's not just in the center, it's actually pretty sharp right across the frame, right up to the corners. And just having a look at the image itself, you can see there's a little bit of vignetting in the corners, but actually with some processing, that actually really does disappear. There is data in there, so you just run that through Lightroom or Photoshop or something and that's gone. So yeah, very usable at 20mm. So this next image is part of a time lapse that I shot on this lens, and this is at 15mm. So just looking at it now, you can probably see it's quite dark towards the edges, but it's not a loss of data there. It is just vignetting like any other lens tends to do. In the center, it's very, very sharp. Right across the frame, it's very, very sharp. And at this focal length, you do have a bit of out of focus stuff in the foreground, and the background will get out of focus. So when you get up close to things, you do get a nice depth of field. So you have a pretty nice image, and I would say that's, again, I don't think you could show that to somebody and they would say you've used an aps-c lens on a full frame camera. That just looks like native to me. So the last one that I'll show you is this one, which is it's just some of the buildings in Shenyang, and I shot this at 20mm. This is at f4, I think, so I have stopped the lens down slightly, and just looking at it, it's a nice clear wide angle image. In the center, it's really, really, really sharp. You can go really close in there to see how sharp it is, and at the edges there's not a problem at all. I mean, it does fall off a little bit and it's not as clear, but to be fair to the lens, considering it's not designed for this sensor size, that is a perfectly usable image, and you know, I don't see any reason for me to fork out on a really expensive wide angle lens when you're getting that sort of quality from this one. So that's it. Those are some of my images and some of my thoughts. It's obviously aimed at aps-c cameras, which is a smaller sensor camera, and it's perfect on those cameras, absolutely perfect on those cameras. But if you do have a full frame camera and you're interested in something, especially between the sort of 15 and 20 mil, this might be a good alternative. It might be, you know, something that's a little bit cheaper than what it is that you've been looking at. And I think you'll find that it might actually do the job just as well as a full frame lens would. But yeah, if you've used this before, or if you're thinking about using it, or you've used other full frame wide lenses, feel free to leave us a comment below and I'll get back to you, and perhaps we can find out any other good alternatives on a full frame lens. There are a few lenses that I've got that are aps-c only, such as the Sigma 18-35, which actually I do use a lot on my full frame camera for stills and video at 35mm, and I find that it is perfectly fine. So if this is something that's interesting, let us know and we might be able to have a look at some other lenses. Bye.